Welcome back, traveler. Welcome to the quiet sanctuary of the dimmed light. The world outside has finally grown still, and the heavy doors of the day are gently closing behind you. Take a slow, deep breath, hold it for a moment, and let it go. Can you feel the silence of the room, wrapping around you like a soft, protective cloak? I am curious to know where you have found your peace tonight. Are you watching the moonlight filter through a window in a bustling city, or listening to the wind in a quiet countryside? Please, if you wish, share your time and location in the comments. It connects us in this solitary space. But for now, release the tension in your shoulders. Let your hands rest loosely and clear your mind of tomorrow's tasks. We are leaving the present moment far behind, drifting across oceans and centuries to the vast, windswept frontiers of ancient China. Imagine standing at the edge of the known world, where the mountains rise like the spines of sleeping dragons against a pale, cold sky. We are not here to marvel at a tourist attraction, but to witness the crushing weight of the stone and the sweat of the forgotten. We will walk in the worn sandals of a single soul, a builder conscripted by the emperor's decree to tame the horizon. Can you hear the distant, rhythmic strike of iron against rock, echoing through the mist-filled valleys? What does it feel like to give your life to a wall that has no end, to build a barrier against the wind and the fear of the north? We will listen to the internal diary of a heart heavy with labor, yet resilient as the earth itself. Close your eyes. Let the cold mountain air fill your lungs, and let us begin the ascent. Our journey begins not with the stone, but with the soft, fertile earth of the south. Imagine a small, quiet village nestled among the green terraces of rice paddies. The air here is warm and humid, thick with the scent of wet earth and growing things. This is the world our worker, let us call him Chen, has known all his life. He knows the rhythm of the planting season, the feel of the buffalo's rough hide, the taste of sweet tea in the evening. But the emperor's will is a wind that blows across the entire empire, reaching even the quietest corners. The summons arrived on a day that seemed like any other, a scroll bearing the heavy, red seal of imperial authority. It was not a request. It was a command that shattered the tranquility of the morning. Conscription, a word that tastes of dust and separation. Picture the farewell, a scene repeated in thousands of doorways across the land. The stoic silence of his father, the hidden tears of his wife, the confused eyes of his young son. He packs his meager belongings, a rough wool blanket, a wooden bowl, a pair of sturdy cloth shoes. He touches the doorframe of his home one last time, trying to memorize the texture of the wood. Then He turns his back on the green valley, joining the column of men waiting on the main road. They are a river of humanity, flowing slowly, reluctantly toward the north. The journey is a blur of days that bleed into weeks, and weeks that stretch into months. We move with them now, feeling the changing landscape beneath our feet. The lush green fades slowly into a dry, dusty brown. The air grows thinner, sharper, biting at the exposed skin. The soft earth of the south is replaced by hard, unforgiving stone and scrub. Every step takes them further from the life they understood, further from the warmth. The sound of the march is a hypnotic, rhythmic thud, thousands of sandals striking the dirt. There is little talk among the men, for breath is precious and fear sits heavy on their tongues. They are walking toward the edge of the world, to a place where the barbarians roam. They sleep in the open fields, huddled together for warmth beneath the vast, indifferent stars. Chen looks up at the moon, the same moon that shines on his rice paddy, and feels a sharp pang of longing. He wonders if his wife is looking at it too, connecting them across the vast distance. But the road demands his attention, the endless, winding road that snakes through the mountain passes. They pass through towns that look like fortresses, gray and uninviting. The people there watch them with pity, or perhaps relief that it is not them marching. The food becomes scarce, a watery millet gruel that barely warms the belly. Their bodies begin to change, hardening, thinning, adapting to the rigors of the march. The softness of the farmer sheds away, revealing the gaunt lines of the laborer. The dust of the road settles into the deep creases of their faces, a mask of exhaustion. And then, after an eternity of walking, the mountains rise up to meet them. These are not the gentle hills of home. These are jagged, angry peaks that pierce the sky. They look like the teeth of the earth, sharp and formidable. The wind here howls with a voice they have never heard, a lonely, ancient sound. And there, tracing the ridgeline of the highest peaks, they see it for the first time, the wall, or rather, the beginning of it, the scars in the earth where the foundation is being laid. It looks like a long, winding serpent made of rammed earth and stone. It defies logic, clinging to precipices where even goats would struggle to stand. The sheer scale of it hits Chen like a physical blow to the chest. How can human hands build something so vast? How can they tame these wild mountains with just hammers and baskets? The realization of his fate settles over him, a heavy, cold blanket. He is not just a man anymore. He is a single grain of sand in a mountain of mortar. He looks at the thousands of men already there, looking like ants crawling over a fallen log. The noise of the construction site drifts down to them, a cacophony of shouting, hammering, and the cracking of whips. It is a city of labor, a city of suffering built on the edge of nothingness. The officers bark orders, herding the new arrivals toward the makeshift camps. The tents are tattered, flapping violently in the relentless wind. The smell of the camp is a mix of unwashed bodies, wood smoke, and fear. Chen finds a small space on the hard ground, placing his wooden bowl beside him. He touches the cloth shoes, now worn thin by the journey. He realizes that the journey was the easy part. The real trial, the battle against the stone and the cold, is only just beginning. He closes his eyes, trying to summon the image of the green valley, but it feels distant now. The gray of the stone has already begun to seep into his mind. He is a builder of the dragon now, and the dragon demands everything. We pause here, feeling the weight of that realization. The sun dips below the jagged peaks, casting long, dark shadows over the camp. The wind picks up, whispering of a long, cold night ahead. Rest in this moment of arrival, before the first stone is lifted. The first morning breaks, not with the warmth of the sun, but with the harsh, metallic clang of a gong. Chen wakes with a start, his body stiff from the cold ground his mind momentarily confused. For a split second, he expects the smell of rice porridge, but the air is filled only with dust and the smoke of damp wood. The camp is a hive of activity, men moving with the sluggish, desperate energy of survival. He is assigned to a work unit, a group of 10 men bound together by a shared fate. Their task for today, and for the foreseeable eternity, is the foundation. They are not building with neat bricks here. Not yet. They are building with the earth itself, a technique as old as the mountains they stand on. It is called hangtu, rammed earth. The process is deceptively simple in concept, but brutal in execution. Chen is handed a heavy wooden pestle a thick log with a flat, iron, shud base. He stands atop a wooden frame filled with loose soil, gravel, and lime. The officer shouts a rhythm, a guttural, sharp command. Left! Strike! Chen lifts the heavy log, his muscles protesting even at this first effort. He brings it down with all his might, the wood slamming into the loose earth with a dull thud. Dust puffs up around his ankles, coating his skin in a fine, gray powder. Lift! Strike! The rhythm begins to take hold, a monotonous, punishing beat. He is not just packing dirt. He is compressing the very spine of the dragon. The earth must be hard as stone, harder than stone, able to withstand centuries of rain and war. Hour after hour, the motion repeats. Lift, the shoulders burn. Strike the shock travels up the arms, rattling the teeth. The sun climbs higher, but offers little warmth against the biting wind that sweeps down from the steppe. Chen looks at the man next to him, an older peasant with hands like gnarled roots. The man's face is a mask of concentration, his eyes fixed on the dirt beneath his feet. There is no talking. Breath is too valuable to waste on words. The only sound is the collective thump, thump, thump of hundreds of pestles hitting the earth. It sounds like a giant, slow heartbeat, the pulse of the wall itself. By midday, Chen's hands are blistered, the rough wood of the pestle tearing at his skin. His back screams in agony, a sharp, hot line of pain running down his spine. They pause briefly for water, a ladle of cold, metallic, tasting liquid from a communal barrel. He drinks greedily, the water washing away the grit in his throat, but doing little for his hunger. Then, the gong sounds again, back to the frame, back to the log, back to the rhythm. The earth rises slowly, agonizingly slowly. After a whole day of breaking labor, they have raised the section only a few inches. Chen looks at the vast expanse of the valley ahead, miles and miles of emptiness waiting to be filled. The futility of it threatens to crush him. How many millions of strikes will it take to cross just one mountain? He realizes now that the wall is not made of earth and stone alone. It is made of human time, human energy, human life. Every inch is paid for in sweat and pain. As the afternoon wears on, the weather turns. The sky darkens, turning the color of a bruised plum. A cold rain begins to fall, mixing with the dust to form a slick, gray mud. The work does not stop. The officers pace the perimeter, their whips cracking in the wet air. Faster! The Emperor waits for no rain. Chen slips on the mud, his knee slamming into the wooden frame. He stifles a cry, knowing that weakness draws attention. He struggles back up, gripping the slippery log with bleeding hands. Lift, strike. The cold rain soaks through his thin tunic, chilling him to the bone. He thinks of the warm fire in his village hearth, the smell of drying herbs. That memory feels like a dream from another life, a life belonging to someone else. Here, there is only the gray sky all, the brown earth, and the white pain. By the time the evening gong sounds, Chen can barely stand. His arms hang uselessly at his sides, trembling uncontrollably. He stumbles back to the tent, his legs heavy as lead. He collapses onto his blanket, too tired even to eat the meager ration of gruel. He looks at his hands. Oh, the blisters have burst, raw and red. He closes his eyes, and even in the darkness, he still hears the sound. Thump, thump, thump. The rhythm of the rammer has entered his blood. He realizes with a quiet horror that tomorrow will be exactly the same, and the day after, and the day after that. He is part of the machine now. The mountain is vast, and he is so very small. We zoom out slowly, seeing the camp as a tiny cluster of sparks in the immense darkness of the wilderness. The first stone has been laid, not in the wall, but in the heart of the builder, a stone of endurance, and of heavy, silent sorrow. We pause here, in the cold, wet night. Rest? For the dawn comes too soon. Time in the mountains is not measured in hours, but in the changing color of the leaves. The frantic, green energy of late summer fades quickly replaced by the burning gold of autumn. But beauty here is a warning, a fleeting signal of the hardship to come. Chen watches the frost begin to creep down the mountain peaks, a white blanket descending closer each morning. The wind changes its voice, no longer just a howl, but a scream. It comes from the north, from the vast, frozen plains of the Shangyu lands. It carries no moisture, only a dry, biting cold that finds every gap in their threadbare tunics. The officers issue winter gear, but it is laughably insufficient. Rough sheepskin vests that smell of rancid fat, and strips of cloth to wrap around frozen feet. Chen wraps the cloth tight, his fingers numb and clumsy. He learns the terrifying lesson of the frontier. The cold is an enemy more patient than any barbarian. The ground, once loose and heavy, freezes solid. The rammed earthwork becomes a battle against stone, hard soil. Every strike of the pestle sends a shock wave of pain through frozen bones. Their breath hangs in the air, a constant, misty cloud of exertion. And then the first snow falls. It is not the gentle, wet snow of the south, but hard, dry pellets of ice. It stings the face like sand, driven by the relentless gale. The work does not stop. Fires are lit along the wall's base, not for the men, but to thaw the earth so it can be worked. The men huddle near the flames during their brief rests, their faces flushed red, their backs frozen white. Chen looks at the older peasant next to him, the one with the gnarled hands. The man has grown silent, his movements slower, more mechanical. A deep, rattling cough has settled in his chest, shaking his thin frame with every spasm. Chen shares his meager warmth at night, sleeping back to back, but he feels the man's heat fading. One morning, the gong sounds, but the old man does not rise. He lies curled under his thin blanket, a dusting of frost on his eyelashes. He looks peaceful, the lines of pain finally smoothed from his face. There is no ceremony, no mourning wails. The officers point to two men. Take him to the pit. They carry him away, light as a bundle of dry sticks. He is buried in the foundation, or in a shallow grave nearby. It matters little. He has become part of the wall's silent history. This death breaks something in the unit. A fragile hope snaps. They realize they are not just building a barrier. They are the barrier. Their bodies are the mortar, their bones the filler. Chen feels a cold fear that has nothing to do with the wind. He wonders if he will be next, if his son will ever know where he lies. He grips his pestle tighter arm, using the anger to fuel his strikes. Thump, thump, thump. The sound is muffled now by the snow, dull and heavy. The wall grows higher, indifferent to the lives it consumes. The winter deepens. The days shorten into brief, gray flickers of light. The nights are an eternity of shivering endurance. They learn to sleep in short bursts, waking to rub their limbs to keep the blood flowing. Hunger becomes a constant, gnawing companion. The supply caravans are slowed by the snow. The gruel becomes thinner, more watery. They boil leather strips. They chew on pine needles for the bitter vitamin C. Chen finds a frozen root while digging and eats it with the desperation of a starving wolf. It tastes of dirt and ice, but it is life. He looks out at the white emptiness beyond the wall. Somewhere out there, beyond the wind, lies his home. He holds that image in his mind like a burning coal. He will not die here. He will not become just another bump in the frozen earth. He repeats his son's name in rhythm with the hammer, a mantra of survival. The wind screams, trying to erase him, but he stands, a small, stubborn figure against the white storm. We pause here, in the heart of the bitter winter. The fire is dying, the cold is waiting. Rest now, and hold on to the warmth. The silence of the white winter is eventually broken, not by a shout, but by a whisper. It is the sound of water, dripping from the icicles, trickling beneath the snowpack. Spring arrives in the mountains with a violent thaw, transforming the frozen world into a landscape of mud and rushing streams. The gray sky cracks open, revealing a blue so deep and startling it hurts the eyes. Green shoots push through the hard earth, defiant little flags of life amidst the construction debris. But for Chen and his unit, the change of season brings a change in labor, a shift from the pestle to the rope. The rammed earth core is finished in this sector, standing like a raw, brown scar along the ridge. Now comes the skin, the armor of the dragon. Great slabs of granite and limestone must be cut from the cliffs and brought to the wall. The officers distribute new tools, heavy iron chisels, massive wooden sledges, and coils of thick hemp rope. The rope is rough, coarse like the fur of a wild beast, and it smells of tar and sweat. They march to the quarry, a wound in the side of the mountain where the earth's bones are exposed. The sound here is different, sharper, higher pitched. Clink, clink, clink. It is the song of metal biting into stone, a constant, ringing chorus that echoes off the canyon walls. Chen is assigned to a transport team, a group of 20 men yoked together like oxen. Their task is to move a single, massive block of cut granite up the steep incline known as the Goat's Back. The stone sits on a wooden sledge, waiting, heavy and indifferent as a sleeping god. They loop the ropes around their chests, padding the rough hemp with rags to save their skin. The leader of the team, a burly man from the north, shouts the cadence. Hiv! Chen leans forward, digging his sandals into the slick mud. The rope bites into his shoulder, the weight of the stone traveling instantly through the line to his bones. The sledge groans, wood grinding against stone, but it does not move. Hiv! They pull again, a collective grunt of exertion, escaping 20 throats at once. This time, a shudder, and the stone inches forward. They find a rhythm slow and agonizing. Step, pull, hold. Step, pull, hold. Gravity is the new enemy here, a constant. Invisible hand trying to drag them back down. They are fighting the mountain itself, stealing its substance to build a barrier against it. The path winds upward, narrow and treacherous. On one side, the sheer cliff face. On the other, a drop into the misty valley below. One slip, one broken sandal strap could mean disaster for the whole line. Chen focuses entirely on the heels of the man in front of him. He does not look up at the summit. It is too far. He does not look down at the drop. It is too terrifying. He exists only in the tension of the rope and the placement of his feet. The sun beats down on their backs, no longer the weak winter sun, but a fierce, blinding eye. Sweat runs into his eyes, stinging and salty, blurring his vision. The dust from the sledge coats his throat, making him cough the dry, hacking cough of the quarry. Midway up the slope, the sledge hits a snag, a protruding root or a loose rock. The rope goes taut, vibrating with a dangerous hum. Hold, the leader screams. They freeze, muscles trembling, locked in a battle of wills with the stone. Chen feels his boots sliding backward in the mud, inch by inch. Panic flares in his chest, cold and sharp. If they lose the tension, the stone will slide, and it will take them with it. He digs his fingers into the dirt, finding a purchase on a buried rock. He grunts, pouring every ounce of his remaining strength into the hold. Hiv! With a scream of effort, they jerk the sledge over the obstacle. The momentum returns. Oh! The stone moves again. They collapse at the top of the ridge, gasping for air, their chests hiving like bellows. They lay the stone in its place, fitting it snugly against its neighbor. The mason taps it with a mallet, a sound of finality. Chen runs his hand over the rough surface of the granite. It is cold, solid, eternal. He realizes that this stone will outlive him, outlive his son, outlive the emperor himself. He has poured his life force into an object that will never feel, never breathe. There is a strange, melancholy pride in that thought. He is building a monument to his own suffering all, but also a monument to his endurance. As the sun sets, painting the sky in shades of purple and bruised orange, the wall looks different. It is no longer just a mound of dirt. It is beginning to look like a fortress, a jagged line of teeth biting into the sky. The fires are lit. The smell of cooking millet fills the air. Chen sits by the fire, rubbing his bruised shoulders. The pain tonight is different from the winter. It is a deep, aching burn in the muscles. He looks at his hands. Oh, they are shaped like claws from gripping the rope. He wonders if they will ever be able to hold a delicate rice bowl again. He looks at the moon rising over the finished section of the wall. It casts a long, straight shadow across the chaotic mountain. Order imposed on chaos. Stone imposed on wind. He closes his eyes, and in the darkness, he feels the phantom weight of the rope still pulling at his chest. He is tethered to this mountain now, but for tonight, the rope is slack. We pause here. In the quiet exhaustion of the camp, the stone is set. The mountain waits for tomorrow. Rest now. Lay down the burden. The brute force of the haulers gives way to the delicate, rhythmic percussion of the masons. Chen watches them from a distance during his brief respite, marveling at their patience. These men are not mere laborers. They are artists of the frontier. They take the rough, jagged blocks that Chen has dragged up the mountain and tamed them. The sound of their work is a constant, high-pitched tink, tink, like rain falling on a metal roof. They use small, precise chisels to dress the stone, smoothing the faces that will look outward to the enemy. Chen sees a mason run his hand over a finished block, feeling for imperfections invisible to the eye. It is a touch of intimacy, almost like a father checking a child's fever. The mortar they use is a strange, sticky concoction, a mix of lime and glutinous rice soup. It smells sweet and earthy, a scent that makes Chen's stomach rumble with memory. This rice mortar is legendary. It binds the stones with a grip stronger than the rock itself. The wall is being knit together, stone by stone, grain by grain. Chen realizes that while his back provides the strength, these men provide the intelligence. The wall is a marriage of sweat and skill. As the sun begins to dip below the jagged horizon, the camp transforms. The work stops too, and the business of living begins. A hidden, desperate economy comes alive in the shadows of the tents. Here, a handful of dried beans is a currency more valuable than copper coins. A sturdy pair of sandal straps can buy a man a night near the fire. Chen watches a transaction taking place near the water barrels. A man is trading a small, carved wooden flute for a pouch of salt. The flute is rough, whittled from a branch of scrub pine, but it represents music, hope. The salt represents survival, the ability to retain water, to keep the muscles from cramping. It is a fair trade in this world of scarcity. Chen reaches into his own tunic, fingering a small, smooth river stone he found weeks ago. It is nothing, just a pebble, but he rubs it like a talisman. It reminds him of the river near his home, cool and flowing, he sits near the communal fire, the warmth seeping into his tired bones. Next to him sits the burly man from the transport team, the one who shouted the cadence. His name is Wei, a former soldier from the northern garrisons. Wei's face is a map of scars, written by wind and probably a blade or two. He is eating his gruel with a slow, deliberate rhythm. He notices Chen watching him and grunts, shifting slightly to make room. It is a small gesture, but in this place it is an act of profound kindness. The stone was heavy today, Wei says, his voice like gravel grinding together. Chen nods, dipping his spoon into his own bowl. Heavier than yesterday, Chen replies softly. Wei chuckles, a dry, rasping sound. And lighter than tomorrow, the soldier adds, a grim piece of frontier wisdom. They eat in silence for a moment, the fire popping and hissing between them. Then, Wei reaches into his belt and pulls out a small, dried chili pepper. He breaks it in half with dirty fingers, offering the larger piece to Chen. For the cold, Wei says simply. Chen takes it, the red skin vivid against his gray, dust-coated palm. He bites into it, and the heat explodes in his mouth, sharp and alive. It brings tears to his eyes, but it also wakes up his senses. For a moment, he is not just a tired body, he is a man tasting fire. Thank you, Chen whispers, the spice burning pleasantly in his throat. Wei nods, chewing his own piece. You pull well, Southerner, Wei says, looking at the fire. You have the ox's heart. It is the highest praise Chen has received since leaving his village. They sit there, two men from opposite ends of the empire, bound by the rope and the wall. They talk quietly of their homes. Chen speaks of the green rice paddies, the humidity, the sound of the cicadas. Wei speaks of the vast, open grasslands, the horses, the endless sky. Their words paint pictures in the smoke, fleeting glimpses of a world without walls. Chen realizes that Wei is just as trapped as he is, a soldier who can never stop marching. The wall consumes everyone, the farmer, the soldier, the mason. But in this shared heat, in this shared spice, the burden feels slightly lighter. The camp noise begins to settle, turning into a low hum of snores and whispers. The stars come out, sharp and brilliant in the thin mountain air. Chen looks at the finished section of the wall, glowing pale in the starlight. It looks less like a monster now, and more like a sleeping guardian. He feels a sense of belonging, not to the wall, but to the men beside him. He is part of a brotherhood of dust. He finishes the last of his gruel, scraping the wood of the bowl. He lies back, pulling his blanket tight. The taste of the chili still lingers on his tongue, a reminder that he is alive. Tomorrow the stone awaits. Tomorrow the chisel will sing. But tonight, he has a friend, and that is enough to keep the cold at bay. We pause here. In the warmth of that small connection, the fire burns low. Rest now in the company of brothers. The peace of the shared bowl and the quiet fire does not last. It rarely does on the frontier. The warning comes not from the eyes of the watchman, but from the earth itself. Chen is sleeping deeply, a rare, dreamless slumber brought on by the chili pepper's warmth. But he wakes to a vibration, a low, rhythmic trembling of the ground against his ear. At first, he thinks it is a distant rock slide, common enough in these unstable mountains. But the rhythm is too steady, too fast, too deliberate. Thrum, thrum, thrum. It is the sound of 1,000 hooves beating the frozen steppe. Wei wakes an instant later, his soldier's instinct piercing through the fog of sleep. He sits up bolt upright, his eyes wide and alert in the dying firelight. "They are here," he whispers, his voice tight with a fear Chen has never heard before. Before Chen can ask who, the night explodes. A whistling sound tears through the air, followed by a wet thud. A flaming arrow strikes the tent next to theirs, igniting the dry canvas instantly. Then another roll and another, a rain of fire falling from the black sky. The camp erupts into absolute chaos. Men scream, stumbling out of burning tents, their faces twisted in confusion and terror. The alarm drum finally begins to beat, a frantic, stumbling rhythm that matches the pounding of Chen's heart. "Move!" Wei screams, grabbing Chen by the tunic and hauling him to his feet. "Do not run to the open. Run to the unfinished section, to the stones." Chen's legs feel like water, his mind refusing to process the nightmare unfolding around him. He is a builder, a man of mud and rice, not a warrior. He has no weapon, only his hands, which are useless against steel and speed. They scramble over the debris of the construction site, sliding in the mud. Shadows burst from the darkness, swift and terrifying. The Xiangnu, the horse lords of the north. They ride with a fluidity that makes them seem one with their beasts. They do not stop to fight. They sweep through the camp like a scythe through wheat. Their curved swords flash in the firelight, harvesting lives with brutal efficiency. Chen sees a man he knows, a quiet stone carver, cut down as he tries to flee. The brutality is sudden, impersonal, and absolute. The wall, the great dragon they have slaved over, stands silent and useless. It is unfinished here, a broken jaw that cannot bite. The enemy pours through the gap, laughing, their war cries high and piercing like birds of prey. Wei shoves Chen behind a stack of massive granite blocks, the very stones they hauled up the mountain. "Stay down!" Wei hisses, pressing his own back against the cold stone. Wei holds a rusted iron bar he snatched from the ground, a pitiful weapon against the horde. Chen curls into a ball, covering his ears to shut out the screams of the dying. He smells the acrid smoke of the burning tents, the metallic tang of fresh blood, and the musk of the horses. This is why they build. It is not for the emperor's glory. It is not for the abstract lines on a map. It is because of this terror that rides out of the dark, this force that can erase 1,000 lives in a single night. The wall is the only thing that stands between civilization and this chaos. The realization hits Chen harder than any whip. He understands now, in his gut, why the stone must be hard, why the wall must be high, why he must suffer. If the wall stops this, even for one night, then every blister is worth it. The raid is intense, but brief. The horsemen are not here to occupy. They are here to terrorize, to steal, to burn. As quickly as they came, they wheel their horses around. They snatch up supplies, tools, and even a few terrified men as slaves. And then they are gone. The thunder of hooves fades back into the darkness, leaving only the crackling of the fires. The silence that follows is heavy, broken only by the moans of the wounded. Chen slowly uncurls, his body shaking violently. He looks at Wei, who is still gripping the iron bar, his knuckles white. Wei nods slowly, letting out a long, shuddering breath. They were testing us, Wei says grimly. Testing the gap. They emerge from their hiding place, stepping into a scene from hell. The camp is a ruin of smoldering ash and broken bodies. The sunrise that follows is not a symbol of hope, but a cruel illuminator of loss. The officers shout orders, trying to restore discipline among the survivors. There is no time to mourn. There is no time to rest. Get up. The cry goes out. To the wall. Close the gap. And for the first time, Chen does not need to be whipped into motion. He runs to the quarry. He grabs the rope. He pulls with a desperate, frantic strength he did not know he possessed. He is no longer building for the emperor. He is building for his life. He is building so that the shadow of the horseman will never fall on his home in the south. The fear has become fuel. The wall rises, driven by the memory of the fire. We pause here, in the smoking ruins of the morning. The danger has passed, but the fear remains. The dragon has been bitten, and it must heal. Rest now, but keep one eye open. The days following the raid are a blur of frantic, terrified energy. The camp does not sleep. It only pauses to breathe. The gap in the wall, that vulnerable, broken jaw where the enemy poured through, becomes the center of their universe. Chen works with a ferocity that frightens even himself. His hands, once blistered and raw, have hardened into calloused hooks of leather. He swings the hammer, not with the rhythmic plodding of a conscript, but with the desperate speed of a survivor. Every stone laid is a promise. Every bucket of mortar is a prayer for safety. Wei works beside him. His soldiers' discipline now turned entirely to construction. They do not speak of the dead stone carver or the men dragged away into the darkness. They speak only of leverage, of weight, of height. Higher. Wei growls, pointing to a dip in the line. A horse can jump that. They build until their muscles tremble uncontrollably, until the moon is high and cold above them. The fear of the Shangnu is a powerful overseer, far more effective than any whip. But soon, a new kind of fear arrives. It comes not from the wild north, but from the civilized south. A cloud of dust appears on the southern road, growing larger and more organized than any supply caravan. Banners of yellow silk snap in the wind, bearing the dragon crest of the imperial court. The rumor spreads through the camp like wildfire. The inspector is coming. Work stops. But this is not a rest. It is a paralysis of dread. The men are ordered to stand in lines, to hide their exhaustion, to look like the emperor's proud servants. Chen stands next to Wei, trying to wipe the gray mud from his face, but it is stained into his pores. The procession arrives with a pomp that feels alien and grotesque in this landscape of suffering. Soldiers in polished armor, horses that look fat and sleek, and finally a covered carriage. The carriage stops, and a figure emerges. He is dressed in heavy silk robes of crimson and gold, layers of wealth that could feed Chen's village for a year. His face is pale, smooth, untouched by the wind or the sun. He holds a scented cloth to his nose, shielding himself from the stench of the unwashed laborers. This is the emperor's eyes, sent to judge their progress. He does not look at the men. He looks through them as if they are part of the landscape, like the scrub pine or the rocks. He walks to the unfinished section, his boots of fine leather avoiding the puddles of mud. The camp commander, a man usually terrifying in his authority, follows the inspector like a frightened dog. Chen watches the inspector run a long, manicured fingernail along the mortar line. It is a gesture of such casual power, holding the fate of thousands in that single finger. Slow, the inspector says, his voice soft, cultured, and deadly. The emperor expects the dragon to be whole by winter. The commander bows low, sweating despite the cold. The raid, Excellency, we lost men. The ground is hard. The inspector turns, his eyes cold and empty. Excuses are the bricks of failure. He replies, do not build me a wall of excuses. Build me a wall of stone. He gestures to his scribe, who notes something on a scroll. That scratch of the brush is a death sentence for someone. Perhaps the commander, perhaps all of them. The inspector turns back to the men, finally acknowledging their existence. The emperor is generous. He announces, his voice carrying over the wind. Offers you glory. Chen feels a bitter laugh rising in his throat, but he chokes it down. Glory does not fill the belly. Glory does not keep the arrows away. But glory must be earned. The inspector continues. Double shifts until the moon is full. A murmur of despair ripples through the lines. But it is quickly silenced by the guards. Double shifts. It means working until they drop off. Working by torchlight. Working until the body consumes itself. The inspector climbs back into his carriage, retreating into his scented world. The procession leaves, trailing dust and dread. The silence they leave behind is heavier than the stone. Wei spits on the ground, a glob of dust and saliva. He smells like a corpse flower. Wei mutters. Chen looks at the retreating banners. He realizes a terrible truth. They are trapped between two monsters. To the north, the wolf that wants to tear their throats. To the south, the dragon that wants to crush their bones. And they, the builders, are just the meat in the middle. The commander turns to them, his face pale with rage and fear. You heard him, he screams, his voice cracking. Torches! Now? No sleep until the gap is closed. Chen picks up his hammer. The weight of it feels familiar, comforting in a grim way. At least the hammer is honest. It does not lie about glory. It only asks for strength. He looks at Wei and sees the same resignation in his eyes. They turn back to the wall. The sun begins to set, painting the sky in colors of blood and bruise. The torches are lit, casting long, dancing shadows that make the men look like ghosts. Clink, clink, clink. The music of the stone begins again, faster now, desperate. They are building a cage for themselves, stone by stone. But as long as they build, they are alive. And in this place, that is the only victory that matters. We pause here, in the flickering torchlight of the endless night. The silk has gone, the stone remains. Rest now, if you can. The order for double shifts destroys the natural rhythm of life. There is no longer a day and a night. There is only the gray time and the black time. The sun is a harsh taskmaster, but the moon is a haunting ghost. Work under the torches is a different kind of torture. The light is not steady. It flickers and jumps in the mountain wind, making the stones seem to move on their own. Shadows stretch and contract like grasping fingers along the unfinished ramparts. Chen feels his consciousness beginning to fray at the edges. His body moves automatically, a machine made of bone and tired muscle. Lift, carry, set. Lift, carry, set. The routine is the only thing holding his mind together. But in the deep hours of the night, when the silence of the mountains presses in, the hallucinations begin. It starts with sounds. He hears a voice calling his name, soft and clear above the grinding of the stones. Chen. It sounds exactly like his wife. He turns his head sharply, expecting to see her standing by the water barrel. But there is only Wei, his face smeared with soot, looking at him with hollow, dark eyes. "Keep moving," Wei whispers, his voice rough. "Do not listen to the wind." Wei knows. He hears them too. Then come the visions. Chen looks at the jagged rocks of the quarry, and for a moment, they look like the faces of his ancestors. They are staring at him with disappointment, or perhaps pity. He blinks hard, shaking his head to clear the fog. The faces dissolve back into granite, but the feeling of being watched remains. The exhaustion is a physical weight, heavier than any stone he has ever carried. It feels like walking underwater, every movement slow and resistant. His hands tremble constantly now, the fine motor control gone. He drops his chisel, and it takes him 3 tries to pick it up. The danger of the construction site multiplies in the dark. A misstep on the scaffolding, a slip of a sweaty hand, means death. They are working on a high section, a tower that overlooks the northern pass. The drop on the outer side is a sheer plunge into the black abyss. Chen is securing a rope around a block arm, his fingers numb and clumsy. The man next to him, a young conscript from the coast named Li, is swaying on his feet. Li's eyes are open, but there is no light behind them. He is sleeping while he stands, a dangerous fugue state known to all soldiers. Suddenly, Li takes a step backward, into nothing air. Chen sees it happen in slow motion, the look of surprise on Li's face as his foot finds no purchase, the way his arms windmill silently in the torchlight. Without thinking, and driven by a reflex he didn't know he had, Chen lunges. His hand shoots out, grabbing the rough fabric of Li's tunic. The weight jerks Chen forward, slamming his chest against the stone parapet. For a terrifying second, they teeter on the edge, balanced between the wall and the fall. The abyss pulls at them, a greedy, dark gravity. Wei is there in an instant, grabbing Chen's belt and hauling backward with a grunt. They collapse onto the stone floor, a tangle of limbs and heavy breathing. Li is shaking uncontrollably, the shock waking him fully from his trance. He stares at the black space where he almost vanished, his mouth opening and closing without sound. Chen lies on his back, looking up at the smoke-filled sky. His heart hammers against his ribs like a trapped bird. The adrenaline burns through the fog of exhaustion, leaving him painfully alert. He realizes how thin the line is. One moment of sleep, one slip, and the wall claims you. The officer nearby walks over, looking down at them with disinterest. "Back to work?" he barks. The stone does not wait for clumsy fools. There is no concern, no inquiry. A man almost died, but the quota remains. Chen helps Li to his feet, gripping the boy's shoulder for a moment. It is a silent promise. "I am watching you. They return to the line. But the atmosphere has changed. The hallucinations are gone, replaced by a cold, sharp terror. The torches seem to burn brighter, revealing the perilous height of their cage. Every shadow now looks like a pitfall. Chen focuses on the texture of the rope in his hands. Rough, twisting, real. He anchors himself to the physical sensation. He will not drift away again. He will not let the ghosts distract him. The night stretches on an eternity of seconds. Finally, the sky begins to turn the color of old bruises. The sun creeps over the eastern peaks. Not a glorious dawn, but a pale, sickly light. The torches are extinguished leaving the smell of acrid smoke hanging in the cold air. The double shift is over. For a few hours, they stumble back to the tents, more like zombies than men. Chen collapses onto his mat, not bothering to remove his sandals. He closes his eyes, and the image of Lai falling plays on a loop behind his eyelids. The catch, the jerk, the pull. He saved a life tonight, but as sleep drags him down, a dark thought whispers in his ear. For what? To die tomorrow? He pushes the thought away. He saved a life, and in this place of death, that has to mean something. Even if it just means one more day of suffering together. We pause here. In the gray light of the morning, the ghosts have faded, but the wall remains. Rest now, dream of flat land. In the vast, grinding machine of the frontier, news is the rarest commodity of all. Rumors fly faster than arrows, but truth travels at the speed of a weary ox. Months have passed since Chen left his village. Months of silence. He has learned to stop waiting, to stop looking at the southern road with expectation. Hope, he has decided, is a distraction that makes the stone heavier. But on a seemingly ordinary afternoon, when the sky is the color of old slate, a supply caravan arrives. It is not carrying just grain and arrows this time. The caravan master carries a small, leather-bound satchel protected from the dust. Mail. The word ripples through the camp, causing heads to lift and hammers to pause. It is a lottery of the heart, terrifying and thrilling. Most men will receive nothing, their families too poor, or too illiterate, or simply too far away. The officer stands on a crate, shouting names into the wind.
Zhang of the River,
Lou the Smith.
Each name is followed by a cry of joy, or a sigh of envy from the crowd. Chen stands at the back, wiping his dirty hands on his tunic. He does not expect his name. His wife cannot write. His father is old. Chen of the Green Valley. The sound of his own name hits him like a physical blow. He freezes. Sure, he has imagined it in his exhaustion.
Chen of the Green Valley,
the officer repeats, impatient. Wei nudges him hard in the ribs. Go, you fool, go. Chen stumbles forward, his legs feeling numb. He reaches up, and the officer drops a small, folded object into his palm. It is not paper. Paper is too fragile for this journey. It is a strip of rough, unbleached cloth, wrapped tightly and sealed with a dab of wax. Chen holds it as if it were a burning coal or a newborn bird. He retreats to a quiet corner of the quarry, away from the prying eyes of the unlucky. He sits on a cold stone, his hands trembling so much he can barely break the wax. He unfolds the cloth slowly. There are characters written on it in charcoal, rough and simple. He recognizes the handwriting immediately. It is not his wife's, but the village scribe's. But the words are hers. He cannot read all of them, but he knows enough. He sees the character for son. He sees the character for rice. He sees the character for wait. Wei comes over quietly, sitting beside him without a word. Wei is literate, a skill from his soldiering days. Read it to me, Chen whispers, sliding the cloth over the stone. Wei clears his throat, his voice unusually soft. To my husband. Wei reads, the rains were good this year. The rice stands tall and green. Chen closes his eyes, and suddenly the smell of stone dust is replaced by the scent of wet earth and growing grain. Our son asks for you every day. He is strong. He herds the ducks now. A sob catches in Chen's throat. A sharp, jagged thing. He sees his boy, running along the muddy banks, a stick in his hand, laughing at the ducks. It is a memory so vivid it hurts. We have saved the best seed for your return. We wait for you. Do not forget the way home. Wei stops reading, handing the cloth back. It is a good letter, Wei says, his eyes looking away, perhaps thinking of his own silence. Chen holds the cloth to his face, inhaling deeply. It smells of smoke, of the courier's bag. But underneath that, faintly, he imagines he can smell the oil his wife uses in her hair. It is a phantom scent, but it breaks him. The tears come not as a flow, but as a single, hot track cutting through the dust on his cheek. He does not wipe it away. For the first time in months, he feels entirely human. He is not just a builder. He is a father, a husband, a man who is missed. But with the joy comes a crushing, terrible pain. The contrast between the words on the cloth and the reality of the wall is unbearable. Here, everything is gray, hard, dead. There, everything is green, soft, alive. How can two such worlds exist under the same sky? He looks at the wall rising above him, and for a moment, he hates it with a pure, white, hot fury. It is a thief, stealing his life, stealing his son's childhood. He wants to tear down every stone he has laid, but he knows he cannot. The letter is not just a comfort, it is a tether. It reminds him that he has a destination. He carefully folds the cloth, wrapping it back into its small bundle. He places it inside his tunic. against his skin, right over his heart. He can feel the slight bulk of it, a constant physical reminder. He stands up, his knees creaking. The sun is setting, casting long shadows that stretch toward the south. He looks at Wei. "They are waiting," Chen says simply. Wei nods. "Then we must survive to keep them waiting." They walk back to the work line together. Chen picks up his hammer. It feels just as heavy as before, perhaps heavier, but the emptiness inside him has been filled. He strikes the stone. Clink. It is the sound of a man fighting for his way home. The wall is vast, but the cloth against his chest is stronger. He will build not for the emperor, but for the boy herding ducks. He will build his way back to them, all stone by stone. We pause here, with the secret warmth hidden beneath the rough tunic. The sun disappears, but the internal light remains. Rest now, holding on to your own treasures. The warmth of the letter remains a secret ember in Chen's chest, but the mountain cares nothing for human sentiment. The geography turns cruel as the wall pushes further east. The relatively smooth spine of the ridge ends abruptly, severed by a deep, jagged scar in the earth. They have reached the gorge of the Black Wind. It is a terrifying drop, a vertical plunge into a misty river far below that looks like a thin silver thread. Logic would dictate that the wall should stop here or turn back, but the emperor's line on the map is straight, and the wall must be unbroken. The officers gather the men at the edge of the precipice. They do not speak of impossibility, They speak only of timber and rope. Chen looks down, and his stomach turns a slow, sickening somersault. The birds are flying below his feet. The wind howls up from the canyon floor, carrying the scent of damp moss and ancient stone. The plan is madness. They will not build on the ground. They will build from the air. They must construct a scaffold, a spider's web of wood clinging to the sheer cliff face. Only then can they lay the foundation for the arch that will bridge the gap. Chen and Wei are chosen for the decent team. It is a job for the steady or the expendable. They are harnessed with thick ropes tied around their waists, the knots checked and double-checked. They step off the solid earth and swing out into the void. The sensation is one of absolute helplessness. Chen spins slowly in the wind, dangling like a puppet on a string. His only connection to the world is the hemp rope and the man holding it above. He clutches his hammer so tightly his knuckles turn white. His task is to drill holes into the vertical rock face to anchor the support beams. Clink, clink, clink. The sound is swallowed instantly by the vast empty space. He strikes the chisel, dust flying into his eyes. The wind pushes him, swinging him away from the rock, then slamming him back against it. Bruises bloom on his shoulders and knees stop. But he cannot stop. Y is hanging 10 feet to his left. a dark silhouette against the gray sky. They do not speak. To open one's mouth is to invite the wind to steal your breath. They work in a terrifying isolation, suspended between heaven and earth. Slowly, agonizingly, the wooden beams are slotted into place. The scaffold begins to take shape, a fragile skeleton of pine lashed together with rope. It creaks and groans under their weight, a protest against gravity. Chen learns to trust the wood, even though it sings a song of strain. He learns to move with the rhythm of the wind, waiting for the lull before striking. The height becomes a strange, abstract concept. After the first hour, the terror fades into a cold, hyper-focused clarity. There is only the rock, the chisel, and the hole. But the mountain fights back. A sudden gust, stronger than the others, tears a loose plank from the scaffold above. It falls past Chen's face, missing him by inches. He watches it tumble, turning end over end, smaller and smaller, until it vanishes into the mist. He does not hear it hit the bottom. He closes his eyes for a second, visualizing the cloth letter against his chest. I am not a falling plank. He tells himself, I am a rooted tree. He forces his eyes open and swings his hammer again. The day is an eternity of suspension. By the time they are hauled up, his legs have forgotten how to stand on flat ground. He collapses onto the ridge, clutching the grass as if the earth might pitch him off. But the work is not done. Day after day, they descend. The scaffold grows, rising to meet the lip of the cliff. Then comes the stone, lowering massive granite blocks onto a swaying wooden platform is a dance of death. The ropes groan, stretching to their limit. Chen guides the stone, his hands guiding a weight that could crush him instantly. Steady! Wei shouts, his voice whipped away by the gale. They ease the keystone into the arch, the pivotal rock that will hold the weight of the wall. It slides into place with a deep, grinding sound. The wooden formwork shudders, but holds. Chen lets out a breath. He didn't know he was holding. They have stitched the wound in the mountain. The wall now leaps across the void, a bridge of defiance. He walks out onto the new section, standing over the abyss, supported only by the stone he helped lay. The wind tears at his tunic, but the stone beneath his feet is unmoving. He looks across to the other side of the gorge. The path continues. The wall continues. His journey continues. He feels a strange, terrifying power. They have conquered the air itself, but he knows the cost. He looks at his hands, trembling not from cold, but from the memory of the fall that didn't happen. He looks at Wei, who is staring into the gorge with a haunted expression. They have looked into the mouth of the dragon and climbed back out, but a part of them is still swinging there, in the empty wind. The sun sets, casting a long shadow of the bridge across the valley floor. It looks like a shackle binding the mountains together. Chen touches the letter. One obstacle down. How many more miles to go? He turns his back on the void and walks toward the fire. The ground feels good, solid, safe. We pause here, with the solid earth beneath our feet. The bridge stands silent in the night. Rest now. You are on firm ground. The completion of the bridge over the gorge of the Black Wind marks a turning point. The impossible gap has been closed. The severed spine of the dragon reconnected. When the final paving stones are laid across the arch, a strange silence falls over the gorge. It is not the silence of fear, but the silence of awe. Even the officers seem diminished by the scale of what has been achieved. To mark the occasion, or perhaps because the supplies have finally arrived in abundance, a celebration is ordered. It is a rare, almost shocking break in the grinding routine of the frontier. The sun goes down, but the work hammers remain silent. Instead of the harsh gong of labor, the air is filled with the smell of roasting meat. A flock of sheep has been slaughtered. Fresh meat, a luxury Chen has not tasted in months. Jars of rough rice wine are unsealed, their pungent, sweet scent mixing with the mountain air. Bonfires are lit along the top of the new wall, transforming the fortress into a ribbon of light. Chen sits on the very stones he risked his life to lay his legs dangling over the safe side of the parapet. He holds a clay cup of wine in his hands, feeling its warmth radiate through his palms. The camp, usually a place of groans and whispered complaints, is alive with laughter. It is a rusty, unfamiliar sound, like a door that hasn't been opened in years. Men are singing songs from their home provinces, melodic, mournful tunes from the south, and rhythmic, stomping chants from the north. The barriers of rank soften slightly in the golden glow of the firelight. Wei sits beside Chen, tearing into a piece of roasted mutton with gusto. Grace shines on his chin, and for the first time, the lines of tension on his forehead are smoothed out. Eat, builder? Wei says, nudging him. Tomorrow we eat dust again. Tonight we eat like kings. Chen takes a bite, the rich, savory flavor exploding in his mouth. It tastes of life, of victory. He drinks the wine, and it burns pleasantly in his stomach, loosening the tight knot of anxiety that lives there. He looks down the line of the wall, stretching away into the darkness, illuminated by the string of fires. It looks beautiful tonight. Not a prison, not a tomb, but a magnificent ribbon binding the mountains together. He feels a surge of fierce pride. I built this, he thinks. My hands placed that stone. My will span that void. For a few hours, they are not slaves to the emperor. They are masters of the earth. The stars wheel overhead, vast and indifferent, but tonight they seem friendly. Chen closes his eyes and listens to the music of a flute. perhaps the same one he saw traded for salt. The melody floats over the gorge light and defiant against the vast emptiness. He thinks of his wife, and for once, the memory brings a smile instead of a tear. He imagines her sharing this moon, sharing this peace. But as the night deepens and the wine jars run dry, a melancholy settles over him. He looks at the end of the illuminated section. Beyond the last fire, there is only darkness. The wall stops. The mountain continues. The realization hits him with the sobering force of a cold wind. They have conquered the gorge, yes, but the frontier is thousands of miles long. Finishing this section does not mean going home. It simply means moving on. They are like Sisyphus, pushing the boulder up the hill, only to find another hill waiting behind it. The celebration is not a reward. It is a pause. It is the dragon taking a breath before it demands more blood. Wei seems to sense his mood shift. He wipes his mouth and looks out at the dark horizon. Do not look at the dark. Wei whispers. Look at the fire. That is the soldier's trick. It never ends, does it? Chen asks softly. The wall ends where the sea begins. Wei replies. Would just have to walk until our feet get wet. It is a joke, but neither of them laughs. The sea is a myth, a distance too great to comprehend. The fires begin to burn down, turning from gold to dying red embers. The singing fades, replaced by the familiar sounds of sleep and the wind. The officers begin to shout, ordering the men back to their tents. The brief holiday of the soul is over. Chen stands up, his body heavy with wine and meat, but his spirit suddenly weary again. He touches the cold stone of the parapet one last time. He knows that tomorrow they will pack the tents. They will leave this place where they bled and triumphed. They will march east to a new mountain, a new quarry, a new struggle. They are nomads of the stone. He walks back to the camp, leaving the empty wine jars behind. The joy was real, but it was fleeting. The stone is forever. He lies down on his blanket, the taste of the feast already fading. He closes his eyes and sees the endless gray line waiting for him in the morning. But he also sees the firelight. He holds onto that image, a string of lights in the darkness, proof that they were here, proof that they mattered. We pause here. As the last ember dies in the wind, the silence returns, heavier than before. Rest now. Gather your strength for the march. The morning after the feast is cold, stripping away the warmth of the memories as quickly as the wind strips the leaves. They pack the tents in silence, leaving behind the blackened circles of the bonfires. The march begins again, moving east toward the rising sun and the new, untouched mountains. Time in the frontier begins to blur, losing its sharp edges. Seasons bleed into one another, a continuous cycle of freezing wind and blistering sun. 1 year passes. then 2, then 5. Chen stops counting the moons, for counting only brings pain. He is no longer the young, soft-skinned farmer who wept at the sight of the first stone. The mirror of the water barrel shows a stranger. His skin is dark as walnut wood, leathery and deeply lined by the sun. His hair, once thick and black, is streaked with iron gray, tied back with a rough cord. His hands are permanent claws, the fingers unable to fully straighten even in sleep. He moves with a stiffness in the mornings, his joints grinding like dry pestles. But there is a new strength in him, a wary, enduring toughness that the young men do not possess. He has become a veteran, a master of the wall. New conscripts arrive with every spring thaw, fresh faces filled with the same terror he once felt. They look at him with wide, frightened eyes, calling him Old Stone or Uncle. He sees his former self in their trembling hands, in their clumsy handling of the tools. He does not mock them. He remembers the kindness of Wei. Wei is still there, marching beside him, though his limp has grown more pronounced. They are the survivors, the old oaks in a forest of saplings. Chen finds himself teaching the newcomers, just as he was taught. Lift with the legs, not the back. He grunts to a boy struggling with a basket. Wrap the rope twice. He advises another, or the stone will take your fingers. He has become the custodian of the wall's secrets. He knows which rock will split easily and which will resist the chisel. He knows the smell of the air before a snowstorm. He knows the exact weight a man can carry before his spirit breaks. The letter from his wife has disintegrated long ago, turned to dust by sweat and friction. He no longer carries the physical object, but the words are etched into his mind like carvings in granite. But even the memory of her face has begun to fade, like a watercolor painting left in the rain. He tries to summon her smile, but sometimes he sees only a blur. This fading terrifies him more than the Shangnu arrows. He realizes that the wall is slowly erasing his past. He is becoming a creature of the frontier, defined only by the stone. The landscape changes as they push further east. The jagged peaks give way to rolling, dry hills, and then to deep, forested valleys. The enemy changes too, sometimes appearing in great numbers, sometimes vanishing for months. They fight skirmishes. They rebuild burnt sections. They bury the dead. It becomes a routine, a grim normalcy. Chen no longer dreams of the rice paddies every night. He dreams of leverage, of fulcrums, of mortar mix. He wonders if he could even return to the life of a peasant. Would his hands know how to plant a delicate seedling, or would they crush it? He has been shaped by the tool he holds. One evening, sitting by a small fire, Wei speaks the thought that haunts them both. "We are the foundation now, brother," Wei says, rubbing his aching knee. We are not the men who will walk on the top. Chen replies softly. We are the buried ones. It is a dark thought, but it carries a strange peace. Acceptance is the final armor of the builder. He stops fighting the reality of his life path and learns to inhabit it fully. He takes pride in the straightness of a line, in the tightness of a joint. These are his victories now. He looks at the section they are currently building, a watchtower overlooking a yellow river. It is strong, stronger than the first ones they built. His skill has grown, even as his body has withered. He sees a young conscript crying softly in the shadows, holding a locket. Chen walks over, his movements slow and deliberate. He sits beside the boy, offering him a piece of dried root. The tears will salt the mortar, Chen says gently. But the stone needs sweat, not salt. The boy looks up, seeing the scars on Chen's face, and finds a glimmer of courage. Chen realizes he has become the why of his own story. The cycle continues. The wall eats the youth and spits out the veteran. He looks east, always east. Wei said the wall ends at the sea. Chen wonders what the sea looks like. Is it vast like the steppe? Is it blue like the sky? Or is it gray like the stone? He decides he wants to see it, not for the emperor, but for himself, to see the end of the line, to see where the stone finally surrenders to the water. That hope is smaller than the hope of home, but it is sharper. It keeps his feet moving. He stands up, groaning as his back protests. The moon is rising, the same moon that watched him leave his village a lifetime ago. It looks indifferent, cold and distant, but Chen nods to it, an old acquaintance. He wraps his thin blanket around his shoulders. Tomorrow is another stone. Tomorrow is another mile. But he is old stone now, and stone endures. We pause here, in the quiet dignity of survival. The years have passed all, but the man remains. Rest now, with the patience of the mountain. The wind changes one last time. It no longer carries the dry grit of the desert or the pine scent of the mountains. It carries a strange, sharp tang, a taste of brine and ancient depths. Chen stops in his tracks, lifting his head like an old warhorse scenting water. He has never smelled the sea, but his blood recognizes it. It is the scent of the end. The landscape flattens, the hills bowing down in submission to the horizon. The great wall, the endless stone serpent they have nursed for decades all, begins to descend. They are approaching Shanghai Pass, known in legends as the first pass under heaven. But to the men who built it, it is simply the last place. The march slows, not from exhaustion, but from a kind of reverent hesitation. And then the horizon breaks open, a vast, shimmering expanse of gray. Blue stretches out to swallow the sky. It moves, breathing with a slow, rhythmic heave that makes the earth seem still and dead by comparison. Chen stares, his mouth slightly open, his eyes trying to comprehend a water without a far bank. It is terrifying. It is magnificent. Wei stands beside him, leaning heavily on his spear, tears cutting clean tracks through the dust on his face. The edge of the world, Wei whispers. We walked to the edge of the world. They reach the shore, where the land ends and the unknown begins. The wall does not stop at the sand. It marches boldly into the waves, a stone head plunging into the surf. This is Lalong Tu, the old dragon's head. The waves crash against the granite blocks, sending spray high into the air. The stone holds firm. The water retreats, hissing over the pebbles, then attacks again. It is a battle that will last for eternity. Long after Chen is dust, the officers call a halt. There is no double shift. Shout today. There is no crack of the whip. The order is simple and shattering in its finality. Done. The word hangs in the salt air, heavier than any stone. Chen drops his hammer. It hits the sand with a dull thud, a sound of absolute conclusion. He looks at his hands, still curved into claws, trembling slightly. What are hands for, if not for stone? What is a back for, if not for a burden? He walks slowly to the water's edge, his boots sinking into the wet sand. He crouches down, dipping his hand into the foam. It is cold, shocking. He brings his wet fingers to his lips, tasting the salt. It tastes like the sweat of 1,000,000 men. It tastes like all the years he lost. He looks back at the wall snaking away into the mountains behind him. It is a scar on the earth, vast, imposing, silent. He remembers the gorge, the snow, the chili pepper, the letter. They are all trapped in that stone now. He realizes with a sudden, crushing clarity that he can never go back. The man who left the rice paddies died somewhere in the mountains. Only the builder remains, and the builder has no more wall to build. A strange emptiness fills him, a hollow echo where his purpose used to be. Wei limps over, sitting heavily on a piece of driftwood. He looks old, so very old. So? Wei says, his voice cracking. We beat the mountain. Chen nods slowly. We beat the mountain. And now? Wei asks, the question hanging between them. Chen looks at the sea, stretching out to infinity. He thinks of his son, who must be a man now, perhaps with sons of his own. Does he even remember the father who walked away? Would he recognize this gray, scarred ghost standing by the ocean? Now, Chen says softly, we rest. He takes the small, disintegrated bundle of the letter from his tunic. He holds it one last time, feeling the phantom warmth. Then he throws it into the waves. He watches it float for a moment, a tiny speck of white against the gray. Then the ocean takes it. It is a release, a letting go of the pain of hope. He sits beside Wei, watching the sun begin to set over the water. It paints the waves in gold and crimson, just like the emperor's robes. But this gold belongs to everyone. The wall stands behind them, a silent guardian. But they are facing the open sea. For the first time in 20 years, there is no stone in front of his eyes. There is only the horizon, and it is wide enough to hold a new dream, or perhaps just a long, quiet sleep. The sound of the waves replaces the sound of the hammer. Whoosh, hush, whoosh, hush. It is a lullaby for the weary. Chen closes his eyes and breathes in the salt. The dragon sleeps, and finally, so can he. We pause here, at the edge of the great water. The work is finished. The hands are empty all, but the heart is full of silence. Rest now. The journey is done. Our long watch on the wall has ended, dear traveler. The dust of the march has settled, and the roar of the ocean has washed away the fatigue. You have walked the length of an empire alongside Chen. You have felt the weight of the stone and the warmth of the fire. Now, it is time to lay down your own burdens. Let the image of the vast ocean and the silent wall fade gently from your mind. The work is done. The history is written. There is nothing left to build tonight. Take a slow, deep breath, inhaling the peace of the end. Exhale the tension of the journey. Feel your body sinking deeper into comfortable, supported and safe. Just as the builder found his rest by the sea, may you find yours in the quiet of this room. I hope this story of endurance has brought you a sense of calm resilience. Thank you for sharing this twilight hour with the dim and light. If Chen's journey resonated with you, please share a thought in the darkness below, or simply tell us where you are resting tonight. Your presence is the mortar that holds this channel together. Drift away now on the gentle rhythm of the waves. The dragon sleeps, and so should you. Good night, friend. Until the next story calls us. Sleep well.